Why am I choosing to discuss a game with very little relevance to the current atmosphere of Pokémon games? 6 years has passed since Pokémon Sword and Shield first released, which for Pokémon games in recent years appears to be more than enough time to be completely obscured from relevancy. The reason I'm making this video is because I remember these games receiving very negative criticisms when they first came out. But when I played Pokémon Sword this year, I actually had a very enjoyable time with the game. So, what's going on with that? In today's modern society, it is extremely easy for people to find the bad in everything, whether it be games, circumstances, other people, to a point where they become judgmental, self-righteous, and seeing the good in nothing except themselves. That kind of mindset is what destroys any chance of us having any real human connection. My review of Pokémon Sword is not going to eliminate that mindset by any means, but by providing a unique perspective on the game and the aspects of my experience with it that I actually liked, I also invite you to view the world in a more positive light, to look past the bad and to enjoy the good. There is not a lot of good in this world, but there is more of it than we are willing to believe. Released in 2019 for the Nintendo Switch system, Pokémon Sword and Shield marked the 8th generation of Pokémon games and introduced the new Galar region, new characters, and a slew of new Pokémon to the already massive collection of different species of virtual creatures. Sword and Shield were announced during the Pokémon Presents live presentation in 2019, and even before their release, fans were making criticisms primarily towards the confirmed lack of a national dex, meaning only a select number of Pokémon from past generations would be available or transferable into the games. I understand the disappointment of not being able to play the new Pokémon game with some of your long-time favorite Pokémon, and how that may diminish the experience for many fans of the franchise. I didn't have an issue with this in my playthrough, as many of my favorite Pokémon are already in the base game. But the different Pokémon species present in the region has a significant impact on the ecosystems of Sword and Shield, which matters to me more than seeing my favorite Pokémon. I found the world of the Galar region to be somewhat empty and lacking life, and some of the overworld Pokémon just felt out of place rather than part of the ecosystem. I also didn't like how berry trees drop berries of all types, rather than berries growing from their own individual plants, like in Pokémon Ruby and Sapphire. It's the little details such as these that take away from the natural ecosystem of Sword and Shield's world. What I did like about the game was all the new bizarre evolution methods for many of the new Pokémon, as this adds a sort of whimsy to traditional Pokémon gameplay that it would not have otherwise. I also very much enjoyed the vast amount of customization available to the player character, in the form of hairstyles and clothing. This seems to be the only game in the mainline Pokémon series with this sheer amount of customization options. Sword and Shield introduced the Dynamax phenomenon, which is a gimmick similar to Mega Evolution and Z-moves. Dynamaxing a Pokémon allows them to physically grow enormous, and gives them access to powerful max moves in place of their regular moveset. However, Dynamaxing Pokémon can only be done in very specific locations, such as max raid dens or gym lead battles, so this gimmick feels less explored than other gimmicks. A select few Pokémon have Gigantamax forms that change their appearance entirely upon Dynamaxing. Aptly speaking, I am a huge fan of most, if not all these forms, but many people harshly criticize these forms for various reasons. It does make me wonder how those same people feel about some of the recent Mega Evolutions. Despite all this, I enjoyed participating in max raids and using the mechanics of max raid battles, as they added a new dimension of gameplay to the battling system. Other criticisms people have with Sword and Shield include the poor graphics quality in an era of video games that boast powerful, beautiful scenery and high quality graphics, and the lack of animations for the Pokémon and the human characters. These are valid criticisms considering Game Freak absolutely does have the time and resources to make thought-out polished games, but instead choose to rush the development process for new generations. The story is very shallow, which I don't necessarily dislike about video games, but in Sword and Shield many of the characters' unique and interesting potentials ultimately fall flat due to vague personalities and aspirations. In more recent days, I've been forming less of an attachment to Pokemon's characters, but it was still disappointing that there was already very little to become attached to. The main antagonist goes to extreme measures to solve an energy crisis that will affect the Galar region in 1,000 years, with this plot point delivered in a way that doesn't lend anything to his character at all. If the crisis will happen in 1,000 years, why would someone in his position care? In my playthrough of Sword, it took me upwards of 3 hours to get from my starting hometown to the opening ceremony of the gym challenge, which struck me as odd considering the gym challenge has always been the first initial and clear goal of all Pokemon games. For the game to tell me I hadn't even started the gym challenge until that point was strange to say the least. As it is, the progression of the game does feel quite slow, and this is where I believe much of the gameplay falls short. The animation for Dynamaxing is slow, picking up items off the ground is slow, navigating menus is slow, gameplay is slow. Fortunately, much of this was apparently rectified in Scarlet and Violet in various quality of life fixes, but I also want to appreciate the quality of life present in Sword and Shield, such as the Pokeball hotkey in wild Pokemon battles. Pokemon gameplay has been clunky in the past, so it's nice to see a very gradual increase in the streamlining of the gameplay. Accompanying the release of Sword and Shield are paid DLC, commonly said to be the only things that make the games a complete game experience at all. I did not purchase the DLC, but I am acutely aware of what I am missing out on, and to be honest, I can't say I mind missing out on them. Maybe I'm just weird for liking this game. Overall, I enjoyed Pokémon Sword. I genuinely had a fun time with the game because it delivered on everything that I enjoy about Pokemon. Cool battle mechanics, interesting new Pokemon, and bizarre new Pokemon forms. Besides these, Sword and Shield have a number of other strengths, but if these aspects are not what makes Pokemon enjoyable to you, then its weaknesses will dampen your experience heavily. I began this review highlighting the importance of seeing the good in things, which I believe I have done. I am not saying to ignore the bad either, and Pokemon Sword and Shield seems to have made a good example of the balanced perspective I think we should have when it comes to viewing the world. If there is a thing that you enjoy for genuine human reasons, then don't let anyone tell you that you can't.